It's Jay. Welcome to Muscogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Stone Go, Gary Fife, Joe Jeff Gados.
Amanda Rutland, Joe Jeff Gados.
Muscogee Radio, Mabo Hedgeta Wedgeskis. Welcome to our program here from 1240 The Brew in beautiful downtown Muscogee. My gosh, it is beautiful today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm ready for it to warm up, though.
So am I. Gosh, it's...
Kazapidos.
We have a couple of segments here for the show that actually... Amanda kind of put together for us here, but we made a contact with the Red Stick Warriors Association from down around Oklahoma City, a story that you worked on, and in the second half of the show, we're going to be talking about terms of endearment. Yes
and no, Gary. I went over to the language department, and we were asking about different things that familiarity terms that Muscogees use, and I talked with them, and we don't have those things, so we go into a little bit about the concept of love and what we call each other.
Well, with Valentine's Day coming up, there might be some pretty handy things to know.
They have some words for us coming up.
Okay, well, I tell you what, since we've got such a tight program, let's just jump right into it. We have in studio here joining us today David Frank and Jeremy Fultz from the association, Red Stick Warriors Association. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for traveling over from the big city here to Old Muscogee.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, well, I tell you what, why don't you lead there, Amanda?
Okay.
And I'll jump in occasionally with a question.
Stone Go, gentlemen.
Stone Go.
It's Stone Go Zazos. Or
Ah,
it's Stone Quesos.
nice.
Head in my head. Head in my head.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all joining us. Why don't you give us a little capsule of your association, Red Stick Warriors Association, and kind of what y'all are about?
Sure. I'll introduce myself first. My name's Jeremy Fultz. Grew up in Destin, Oklahoma. Went to school in Wetumpka, so kind of my stomping grounds down this way. My grandpa was Johnson Roberts, pastor at Middle Creek Number 1. Grandma Christine, and my aunties that I grew up with as well, from Dustin, Wetumpka, Nellie Roberts, and Minor Roberts. They kind of headed some of the jail WIMS programs there. So really familiar around this area.
My name is David Frank, and co-founder of the Red Stick Warrior Association. I grew up in Oklahoma City, but I spent some time in Sasakwa with my Uncle John Franks. Every summer, hanging around New Tulsa Stomp Ground, Middle Creek Number 2 Church, large, extensive family. I'm one of those products of the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So all my aunts and uncles helped out my mom, who's a single mother. And we actually started Jeremy and I met through a class I had put together to learn the Muscogee language. And he approached me afterwards and said, you know what, it'd be great if we could video the class. And from there, he just took it to another level with the live streams that we do. We started recording the class, making it available online. And from there, we upgraded our camera equipment and started doing interviews.
Now, these interviews, what kind of topic are y'all discussing, or, what are you putting out?
Well, we have a few different options. We're kind of running everything what we call RSW TV, stands for Red Stick Warrior TV. And we're doing stuff we just released one called The Elders. It's a new category, and it has Los de Patty on there, and also Netchke Gray. And it was awesome that Joe Sulphur let us use some video that he took. And it's getting some really good responses, and it gives people the look on how, our elders spoke in their language 30, 40 years ago. And so it's a pretty good video, and Then we also have some language.
You know, you ran across some names there that are familiar to me, and, you know, I know Joe and things like that, so it's wonderful to see you getting so far back into our communities and our people. Let me ask you this real quick, though. Red Stick Warriors, now that's a pretty imposing name, and it seems like it would set the bar pretty high
Right.
For achievement. So why did you choose that one?
Well, you know, the Red Stick Warriors were made up of many different tribal towns, and they fought encroachment from the whites and want to preserve our way of life. Now, we're not fighting against removal or trying to save our old tribal towns anymore, but we are in a fight to save our language and our culture, which I think is we're in a very desperate times when it comes to our language. I feel like we're on the last generation. But I think Red Stick Warriors keeps that spirit alive from what we had back then. Many different tribal towns coming together. I'm Seminole, Jeremy's Creek. In Muscogee, we use that word to refer not only to Creek and Seminole people, but Tlaplaco, Kailegis, Alabama Cosati, Yuchi, and even the Freedmen is part of our history.
So would you think it was accurate to say maybe you're fighting assimilation in these modern times?
Yeah, I really think it's preservation. I think, you know, I went through the same thing. Once I got old enough to say, no, I'm not going to the stomp ground, you know, I got away from it for years and years. And just the last few years, having matured, now I want that back. And these people that could have taught me, they're all gone. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that the youth coming up now doesn't make the same mistake, because I believe there's only a few people under the age of 50 that could still speak our language.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we want to make available. People that are going through what me and David are going through currently, 20, 30 years down the road, will have some access to the same resources that we have now, mm-hmm. and that we didn't miss out on.
So you had mentioned you're listing these on the website. Do people have to pay, or are they free?
No, at this point, everything's free, and we plan to keep it that way. And that's part of the reason we did the nonprofit for Red Stick Warrior Association, is because we want to let people have access to this. We want, anytime they want it, they don't have to pay a monthly fee, no donation. It's there for them.
Wonderful.
You have come up from Oklahoma City today, and you know, thank you again for doing it. But tell me about the community down there, the Muscogee community. I mean, is it large? Is it strong? We know that they've got a center down there and an active population, but does that distance and being outside of the jurisdiction impose new challenges?
Yeah, I think it's always been a challenge for those of us that grew up in the city, because you're a long way from the Creek-speaking churches, and you're a long way from the ceremonial grounds. So it does factor in. And I notice my family that has grown up around the Sasakwa area, they can understand the language. My generation from the city can't. As far as the community there now, our classes will have anywhere from 15 to 35 people. But it was interesting that when they had the Christmas dinner, there were 300 or 400 people there. I was like, I wish all these people would come to the class.
Well, you know, free food
Yeah.
gathers Stajati.
Right.
Yeah, the lure of Sofke there. Now, how do you go about conducting your classes? I presume you have a teacher there, and then a lesson plan, something like that.
Okay. Well, at first, you know, like I said, I thought it would be a study group. From the response I got, I knew we were going to need a facility, so I was able to acquire a facility at the dance studio that I work at. I've been a ballroom dance instructor for 27 years. And when that started to be a problem with hearing lessons going on next in the other room and things like that, the Oklahoma City Muscogee Association let us use their facility, and they've been real nice to us, Teresa Gouge and Blue Clark, and they've also let us use a facility for interviews. We've used Ted Isham for our very first class, and then Edwin Marshall did about 5 classes. Now Ted Isham is going to be doing our next project, which starts Sunday.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I'm definitely intrigued.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so the new class is going to be covering a book called Muscogee Text, and it was put together by
That would be Jack Martin.
yeah, Jack Martin put it together, and it's these texts that were locked away in archive that was about a linguist that came and spoke and learned from a citizen back in
The 1930s, it was at James Hill.
James Hill, and Jack Martin captured all this and put it in a book and did a lot of translation with it. And so we're going to go through some of the chapters in the book just to learn about the history, the way that we thought, 60, 70 years ago, and just kind of learn some of the language and the history as we go. At this point, we have 5 classes set up, and it's going to be off and on. The first class that we're going to do is meet in person on the 31st, and that class is at 6.
6 to 8
Yep,
at
6
the Oklahoma City Muscogee Association.
Then the next class is going to be total live stream, like a webinar type thing, and it's totally free to log in, and we'll have some of that information on the website and our Facebook page as well.
The challenge of learning the Muscogee language is really intriguing, and it's not simple. It's not easy. There's so many variations on a word that affects what it means. Being a beginner, I'm beginning to appreciate the complexity. Now, is that a real challenge in getting across to your students, and like verb endings or object endings, things like that? I don't want to get too technical, but if you add a T to something, it changes things.
Right.
things like
Well,
that.
I'm a beginner myself, so I think the thing you notice is that you have to be open to the contradictions you run into. You'll have fluent speakers, knowledgeable people that contradict each other. And I think that goes back to our history, where the different tribal towns had their own different dialects.
Now, with saying that, David, have you had that contradiction even within your instructors? And have you picked a specific dialect to try and teach, or how do you manage that challenge?
Well, I think at this point, I don't know enough to tell the difference. I'm just good and confused right now. Like when people tell me, well, that's the Creek way or that's the Seminole way, it all sounds the same to me. So we're still at that stage where we started off with the wanting to learn the language. We got so involved in these other projects and interviews we're doing that we rarely open up a language book. So we're at that stage where we got too busy to sit down, and which our original goal was to learn the language.
Now, one thing I've noticed recently and overall, there are so many elements of our traditions and our culture that are locked away in our language that you don't understand unless you start to study it. Have you discovered any nuances like that in y'all's efforts so far?
Jeremy?
I think for us where we're at currently, I'm a beginner as well, but I think we're starting to see it in our own lives from our childhood. We all grew up around native speakers, first language speakers that spoke Creek and Seminole. And I think now looking back, we're starting to figure out, hey, this is what my family was talking about. This is where we're starting to see it. And it's not necessarily in the teaching, but once we learn about like some of the nuances from the way the teachers are instructing, we take that knowledge that we learned and we saw 20 years ago and we're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. That makes sense now.
Do you think maybe one of the main challenges with this is because all the elders are more centralized in the jurisdiction, that there aren't many elders in the metropolitan areas?
Yeah, that's a challenge, but, me and David have also dedicated ourselves to traveling and open to coming down here a lot more. And, we've been blessed to be in the city where we do have some elders that do speak fluent languages, that have taught the language at different institutions, and also our first language speakers. We just had a interview with a Seminole citizen named Bertha Tilkins, and that was a great interview, and she's a first language speaker, and it's taken the time to actually teach me and David, some of the language as well. But that's one of the things that it's a challenge, but we also see it as an opportunity that we can actually come down here, get a little bit of our culture, learn the language as we go. But yeah, that as long as people are open to us coming down and sitting down with the camera and the light, we're open to it.
Let me ask a couple of things here. One of them is an absolutely ridiculous question, but when you hear fluent speakers conversing or something like that, for me, it just goes flying over my head, and I will pick up a word here and there, but I feel like that's an accomplishment for me to understand at least a little bit
Right.
of it. You know, so you guys get the same feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. Like, even as a child, I kind of knew the topics because, you knew the nouns and some of the verbs and connect, but you never knew what the full context of the conversation was about. So it could be a simple conversation between two fluent speakers, and I would sit there in reverence, like it was, it could be the most holy thing, but it was just so simple to them just because it was the language.
And hopefully they're not talking about you being this little ridiculous kid. You know?
Right.
And,
Jeremy?
and, growing up, and I just recently made this connection, but when I was growing up, I grew up with my grandparents. I grew up in a house where I thought my mom and dad were just really old. But come to find out, my mom was young when she had me, and so I, was living with them from like an early age, like 3 months old. And it was very Muscogee Creek. It was a lot of Creek spoken in my household until I hit school age. And I remember this. I remember knowing exactly what they were talking about. I could understand the language. And then when I hit school, it was like it flipped and it went to English. And my grandma started reading to me every night in English, and it was like they wanted me to succeed in where we're at now in this new world. And because she was one of the ones that went to boarding school, they changed her name. She was a first language speaker, was forced English and things like that. And it didn't connect with me until a couple months ago. And I was like, they did that for me. And so I think now I could always understand a couple words here and there, but going into, because I'm the editor also of some of the videos you guys see online, so I'm in front of these videos 4 or 5 hours at a time, and I can starting to put more and more and more together, and I think it's great.
You get sore from wearing headphones.
What's that?
Sore from wearing headphones.
Oh, yeah.
One of the dangers of our business. The second question I had is, do you coordinate with the language program here at the Tribe? Is there something back and forth there?
No, we don't, actually. Our first instructor, Ted Isham, is the Muscogee language instructor at Oklahoma State, so he brought sort of his own curriculum for that first class. And Edwin Marshall, who did the next 5 classes, he sort of put together handouts as he went along. And with this next series we're doing starting Sunday, we're working out of the book. So he'll be translating the stories. We'll be learning history and language simultaneously.
Now, you're talking about this book. Where can people get that?
It's available, obviously you can get off of Amazon, but it was the University of California Press that actually put it out, and it's an academic book. And, when you look at it, it's kind of intimidating. It's huge. It's probably the biggest book I've ever seen, but it's all about our culture, and it's all about our people. And when you actually start looking into it, it's not that long, but when you start getting the literal translation, the actual translation, and then how it should come across, for one sentence, there's 3 or 4 other lines that are describing that sentence. And so all in all, it's really not that long of a book. I think a chapter itself is 3 pages. Because they're about specific stories. They talk about the history of Halabi, some of the stars, and they have some of like little people stories in there, and it's a whole complexity of just our culture. And you look like, yeah, that's Creek.
So it touches on so many different elements.
Exactly. There's stuff about the ceremonial ground. There's stuff about a preacher's prayer and church stuff. It encompasses a whole lot of things.
Wow, I can't wait to actually dive into that. Now, some of the other projects that you had mentioned previously was that y'all were working on possibly a hymn CD.
Yeah, I had the opportunity of recording the It was a Muscogee hymn convention that took place at Wetumpka Church over the summer. And it was one of the first things that we kind of did, and I actually just did it on my own, but Edwin had invited me out, and I recorded it and put it on YouTube. So it's already up on YouTube, but just taking some of those songs and putting them together on our website so people can understand and go back and listen to some of our, hymnals.
Wow, that's going to be awesome. Now, we're getting a little bit close on time. You had mentioned that you were trying to get a language class started in the Tulsa area. Where's the progress on that?
Well, we actually thought that it might be better to go through the internet, and since we live stream the classes, that we can reach many different areas instead of just picking up and going to a different area every time. And then I was telling Jeremy, I said I would rather inspire people to do this in their own community. I mean, I'm not a fluent speaker, but I found a fluent speaker and I found a facility. I want to encourage people to do this in their own community. Now, people aren't letting us give up on this Tulsa idea, so we've reconsidered it, and I'll be looking at some locations in the near future, and we'll make that announcement.
Now, if people want to contact you or get upcoming information, how can they do that?
Well, our website is redstickwarriors.com. But you can look on Facebook and type in Red Stick Warriors, and it'll come up to, we have 2 pages on Facebook. We have our study group page. That's a closed page, but David, I think, invites a lot of people to it. And we also have our nonprofit page, the Red Stick Warrior Association page. So that's available as well.
Okay. Last question. For the live stream, how can people get into that? Is it actually live stream or Periscope?
Yeah.
What format are you using?
So for this next class and the next series of classes that we're going to do, we're going to host it as a webinar. So as long as you can get to our webpage, the redstickwarriors.com webpage, there will be a link that we'll have there that will get you to the actual webinar itself.
Okay, guys, we're out of time, but this is a fascinating subject. We'd like to invite you back for another program at some point, and we'll relax a little more and have some more fun with it.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We appreciate Jeremy Fultz and David Frank for coming in from the Red Stick Warriors Association. We'll be taking a short pause here and then be back with the second feature that Amanda's put together for us. Might be handy with the upcoming holiday. So stay with us here on Muscogee Radio.
It's okay to play with fire at One Fire Casino of Omogie, where we're turning up the heat with hot deals every day of the week. Not only do we have over 300 blazing electronic gaming machines and smoking monthly giveaways, we offer $5 member match plays to ladies on Mondays, the men on Tuesdays, and those who join us for lunch between 10 and 2 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday at One Fire's very own Council Oak Cafe. Thursdays are especially on fire with double point hot pig machines. One Fire is located on Highway 75 and Eufaula Street in Omogie, and we're open 24/7. Can you handle the heat?
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in 2 worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just because I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Okay, well, that was, a fun segment there. I enjoyed talking with those guys. We have the Valentine's Day holiday coming up in a week or two, something like that?
Yeah, it's been creeping up on us, and I see it. The only thing that makes me really think of it is, the flood of candy and teddy bears in the stores. But with it coming up, I took a little bit and went over to the language program and met with Gracine Hicks and Rebecca Barnett, and we sat down and kind of talked about the holiday a little bit and the differences within, mainstream society and how they view the holiday and our Muscogee perspective on it. And so they shared some words with me kind of surrounding the holiday, some translations of how to say the holiday and some words that would be pertinent. But a lot of our conversation was just talking about the Muscogee concept of love and what that means to us.
Its basic Muscogee approach to it is not to splash it around and do a lot of things like the Hicks world does, but
Exactly.
Different, more close personal feeling there.
I think with us as a people, it kind of reflects that humbleness, and so maybe it just being more private.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and share this piece that you've prepared for us.
Well, I appreciate y'all sitting down with me today and going over some terms of endearment, since Valentine's Day is coming up. So just so listeners know, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Gracine Hicks.
I'm Rebecca Barnett.
As we had mentioned a little bit earlier, you had said, traditionally, of course, we didn't celebrate Valentine's Day. Of course, we didn't call each other boo or maybe baby like people do now. Could you go into a little bit of those histories?
Well, I think our people way back in history, they were really private people, and it was, meant just for the two. But as the younger people started recognizing Valentine's Day, we probably didn't even know what Valentine's Day was for our elders back in history. But as the younger people started coming up and recognizing these days, we kind of took that as a holiday for love. And we don't really have terms of endearment, but we do have like terms for, babies and stuff that we named out of, I guess you'd say, love.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had mentioned, Gracine, that a lot of English concepts, European concepts, don't translate into Muscogee.
Right, there's a lot of things that, they might call their baby cakes, or we don't have that. I mean, we can translate it, but it doesn't sound right when we translate it, But I know me and Becky was talking about a long time ago, like our parents we didn't see that as growing up. And I'm sure there was love and stuff, but we didn't see that. I think the younger generation is more now, because in my family, like she was saying, you name the babies, and it's what they're doing that you see, that's how you nickname your babies. And a long time ago, and I'm sure that was the same way. And I know there was love there, but it just wasn't really expressed, I guess, like we do now. Because now, I know a long time ago, my family, and I know my mom and dad loved me, and they would hug us and stuff. But me, I wanted my kids to feel that. So I'll hug them and say, I love you when they're leaving. But a long time ago, you didn't hardly see that. I mean, in our family, we didn't. And I know my mom loved us, but it just wasn't out there and things like that. But there is a lot of words like nicknames, like my nickname. My name is Gracine, but everybody knows me by Susie, and that was because I was named after my grandma's best friend. So, and my little brother, we call him Herbie, and his real name's Franklin. So things like that, I didn't really hear a lot of children that had Creek names till the younger generation. They want those names brought out. So
even me growing up, that's not something, we particularly did, and I never knew how to say I love you in Muscogee, because I know Dad loved us, but it's not something he particularly said. It's those actions and things. And we all had the Muscogee names he had for us. I'm Kajo and my sister's Jody and things like that. And I knew when he didn't like someone because they didn't have a nickname.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't show affection around you. They didn't show that affection, but it was automatically like unconditional love. It was just shown in different ways, like the food they cooked for you, the things they did for you. That was the show of affection.
It was more action than speaking.
Yeah, and they didn't really hug you, you know, your parents didn't really hug you. It was just understood that they had that love for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was just understood.
Mm-hmm. Now that's Onagitchka, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all have a few things prepared that you wanted to share?
Yeah. We came up with some words for Valentine's Day.
Okay.
My husband calls it Stifigi Imganita. That's saying, I'm giving you my heart, translated in English. And Becky heard,
Sweetheart, Jafik Jamba Nita. That means Sweetheart Day.
I think I like those better than Valentine's Day anyway.
and then we came up with another one, Anogichka Nita, Love Day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some of these words that we came up were descriptive. They have to be descriptive.
Mm-hmm.
But like a baby, you know, we don't say baby, we call him BB, you know. So it's and some of it is for looks, you know. Well, me and Susie went back into when we were younger, trying to, you know, what we used to say, you know. So
we used to hang around with each other when we were younger,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was teasing. She said, "Remember when we'd say, 'Oi, he's semanachkostos.' That means he's really handsome, you know." And we were teasing each other about that.
So it's just, you know, little things like that, like, you know, a pretty girl, you know, a man could see a pretty girl and they say, "Hiloshit," or "Hilos," you know. That's probably about as far as you go get, but now we associated some of these words with Valentine's, like, you know, different little things that associated with it. That's what we went into too. So,
How would you even go in to say, I consider you my friend, or something like that, to express that to another person?
Jimmy dan hissi.
you could say,
Are you saying you're my best friend, or I want you to be my friend, or
Like telling that person, you are my close friend.
okay, you're my close friend. You could say, "Idin hissi tibolezi dos." We're close. We're close friends. Tibolezi means close, and idin hissi means we're the friends.
Could you say it one more time?
Idin hissi tibolezi dos.
Okay.
you was asking about how you say I love you?
Mm-hmm.
Ichi no gijes.
Ini
Iji no gijes.
jogijes.
Iji
Eg
no
no
gijes.
jes.
I love you.
Okay.
You're saying I love you there.
That makes sense because it makes me think of when I was little and we used to sing Jesus Loves Me.
Mhm.
We see Jesus.
Aja no gijes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I got tongue-tied this morning.
Aja no gijes.
John O'Gidges, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that really comes from that. And then we teasing. I said, "Becky, what did you say about calling someone sweetheart?" And she said she used to hear her mama say Jafik Jumbi. And I hear that too, because I know when my husband first got together, he would tell his mom that he had Jafik Jumbi. I was like, what is that? You know? And then Becky was telling me, she said her mama was saying it was meant sweetheart.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So it was we kind of went back to the old time when we used to hear some of these things, and we were talking about how our parents didn't really say things like that, you know, but the younger generation is into, you know, like giving candy, flowers, cards.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back, and you were saying that, parents didn't necessarily say those things to one another, but could a husband have a familiarity for a wife? You know, is there a term for wife that could encompass that? Or did they just call each other by name?
Think about that.
I think, like my dad's name was Yadika, but they just called him Bird. And I remember that's all my mom called him was Bird. And that was his last name. But that's all she called him. She didn't really call him by his first name. And like me, all I know was Hochti.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's about as far as it got, you know, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like, you know, I think they just called each other by name, proper, you know,
Mm-hmm.
proper names.
Because I never heard my dad or mom say honey or baby.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that while I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And but I knew they loved each other because you know how sometimes you play with each other and kind of pat them on the back or something. I would see my dad do that to my mom, but you know, not as far as names, he just called her by her name, and my mom called him by my dad's name.
I think back then when love was, when they went and got married, when they were married or they took each other as man and wife, it was understood that it was going to be forever and that love was there. It didn't have to be shown to public, or it was just a common understanding that when they went, and they stayed with their spouses forever too. So it was a common understanding that when they got married, it was for that forever in love. And and I never doubted my mom and dad's love for each other. I mean, how could you? You know what I'm saying? It was just understood even for the family. Even though affection wasn't showed, it was just understood.
I can see that. In some ways, I can see that maybe in modern society we need to go back to that.
Exactly. Because we don't see that anymore.
There's lots of over displays and oversharing of information.
Exactly. Yeah. In public.
In public, whether you want to see it or not.
Yeah, there was like growing up, like Becky said, the meals that your mom prepared for you, that was saying I love you without saying it. And you understood that. And just like us, we grew up in church. So Mom would always say, you have to love everybody. Even though you have enemies, you have to love them. So that's, that was her way of telling us that, even though someone does you wrong, you love them. So, and I know you grew up like that too.
Yeah, we
that
did.
That was the one thing she always said was, you have to love everybody, no matter what they do. And when, like Becky said, when they get married, and it was forever for them. The family was close back then, but now we're really losing that with our younger generation. And
I think that and more assimilating of European values and getting away from our Muscogee ways. Because even when I was younger, extended family, our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, you may only see them, 2 or 3 times a year, but you still felt that love for one another and that closeness.
And then they had the right. My mom would always say, your aunt has the right to get on to you if she sees you doing something wrong. But nowadays, you can't really do that. If you try to get on to other people's children, even though they're your relatives, well, you're going to get that anger. And that wasn't like that back then.
Well, even correcting children is showing a form of love.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's what my mom used to tell me. If somebody tells you something that's one day older than you, you listen because they're not doing it to hurt you. They're doing it because they love you. You had to be, there was a certain etiquette that the Creeks went by. I guess we went by it too, growing up,
But I think that goes back into a lot of us not really questioning why we do things. Yeah. We just do them because we know we're supposed to. Yeah. And in the end, it always comes out to the reasons we're good behind it. And getting away from it, we see what that causes when we don't listen.
And we never questioned. If they told us, don't do this, we never questioned it. But now I see my granddaughter, she'll say, why? Why can't I do that? But we never question things.
I used to get in so much trouble if I'd ask questions. Dad said, just 'cause.
My mom was, 'cause I say so. 'Cause I know me and Becky, her mama used to get on to us 'cause Me and Becky used to do things that, together. I guess we're not put that on the radio.
Well, we'll keep it a secret. We don't need to say what those things are.
But her mama got on to, when I was with Becky, her mama, and I didn't say,
"You're not my mama.
You can't get on to me like that." That wasn't because she was, and that's what my mom said. When you go to her house, you do what she says because you're over there under her roof, and she's, the oldest. So she tells you something, you believe it. You don't question her. So,
and even I've heard from several Mikos, a lot of the church concepts that we grew up with are the same as far as loving one another. If you have an odds against someone, you should go and fix it, and things like that.
Yeah, it was at the grounds they talk about love when they do the speaking, respect, and so does the churches. They it's. I think we grew up in a society of love.
I agree. I agree.
We was in a society. We were taught to love. As a Muscogee people, we were taught. That's all we were taught, was to love. And I mean, that, like, she going back to the food subject. She said, and if any, if they, even if it was a homemade birthday cake, they would make it for you, and a dinner. It wasn't no fancy restaurant or a fancy cake, and you accepted that as that love, and you was really happy with it, which now I don't know if that's acceptable in our young people. I think they would feel hurt if nothing was done.
Yeah, I can kind of see that because they expect
Big
X
things.
amount of gifts and I didn't get what I wanted type thing.
Yeah.
But even looking back and some of the histories that I've learned about pre-removal and our communal society, that we made sure everyone was taken care of in a sense of love. And even when we were small and we would go to people's houses or they would come to ours, we would feed them no matter how little we had, we offered.
Right.
That's the way it was, and it was that community, and that goes back to that what she was talking about. When one person gave you advice, you took it, because it takes a community to raise a child, and that's where I see it now. I didn't before, when they said it takes a community to raise a child, but when we were told, listen to that person. If they're giving you advice, that goes back to that. It takes a community to raise a child.
Definitely. Are there any other aspects that y'all see where our concept of love as Muscogee people differs from mainstream society today?
Yes. I think our younger people has started to become selfish, maybe, to a point. Because I know I have some kids, and they're I see a lot of selfishness. And it's not like the way we were raised, they used to tell us if somebody comes over, even if it's bread and water, you offer it.
Yes, definitely.
So they would be hungry. But now these young kids, it's like, to each his own, dog eat dog world. And I still talk to mine. You don't do that. Somebody comes over, you offer, even if it's just a glass of tea, offer it. It's a blessing. You're sharing your blessing. And, and that's what my mom used to tell me. If somebody offered you something, they're offering you what they were blessed with. So accept it.
And you can't refuse.
Yeah,
it's
don't
so
refuse.
rude.
Yeah, that was an insult to refuse something.
Yes.
Yeah, because they felt like you didn't want their food or drink or something. But she used to say, even if it's just to drink, take it, because they're offering the blessing they received. And that all goes back to love.
It does.
Yeah.
Community, family, all those things tied together. And even I see it tying into some of our values that we have about responsibility and some of these foundations that I think our young people definitely need to be fostered in. I'm trying to think of the ones they have at the college. As far as respect, responsibility, hopothlinga. Just trying to remember what that one was.
Wisdom.
Wisdom, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything to add, Gracine?
Well, like she was saying, a long time ago, they would leave food on the table because they would say, someone might come that's hungry. You know, and nowadays you don't see that. Mm-hmm. Or like if it was time for them to eat, you know, they're not going to eat till you leave. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and a long time ago, they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know my grandma didn't. She would make a big old crock pot of sofky, and she'd say, whoever is walking by, if they stop, she would offer that to them. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, you see, you'll go, and if people were going to eat, they're going to not eat. They're going to wait till, you know, you leave. They don't say, can you sit down, you know, and eat with us. I see that a lot, you know. That's what me and Becky was talking about. And I remember they leave it on the table or put it in where to be warm on the stove so that if somebody came, they would feed them. And nowadays, I don't think I've ever gone to someone's house and seen that done.
You do it at my house. We still do that.
Mm-hmm.
We still, you know, my mom used to say, don't throw out the leftovers, you know, which a lot of young people do because they don't like leftovers anyway. But she'll say, somebody might come over and they might be hungry. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's a love, you know, for somebody to, all this that we're talking about, it all goes back to that one word, Anogichka.
Which definitely, I think people these days associate love with a romanticism.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily that. It's that brotherly love, that care for another human being.
Right. But they look at it as, like you said, the other kind of love. Mm-hmm. But, well, you know, it says in the Bible that one day it'll be no love, you know. So, to me, that's kind of where we're headed at right now, because they say everything will be wax cold. And it's not like it was when we were growing up.
Nothing like it was when we were growing up.
It's so different now. It's kind of scary in a way. Mm-hmm. If you know, as Muscogee people, if we lose that love for one another, what else are we going to lose? You know, what else is going to happen? We'll just be
like everyone else.
To me, we're taking more of the European way.
Assimilating just a little bit
right.
more.
When we talk about love, because people say, Valentine's Day's coming. What are you going to get? You know, that's the first thing they ask. What is your husband going to get you, or what you going to get for Valentine's Day, you know?
Yeah, and even to me, that still seems foreign, because I was like, well, I see you. I'm going to cook you dinner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's a normal, everyday thing, you know, but that we just didn't have Valentine's Day love for the Muscogees. It was showed every day.
Not just one day out of the year. It was every day.
And just like Mother's Day, you know, I said, I'm a mother 365 days of the year.
Not just
what's Mother's Day?
Not just that one day, you know. Right, you know. That's how it was, but now.
It has to be shown now. It wasn't, I don't know, it's commercialized to where Valentine's Day is flowers and candy, but they don't really see the hidden part of everyday life that you're shown.
I think that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Good reminder. Do y'all have any more words or anything you want to share with our listeners that they may enjoy?
Well, we did candy, and we said nakjamba.
Nakjamba. Now, essentially breaking that down, what is that? Because jamba is sweet. Jambi. What's nak?
Something
sweet.
Oh, okay.
Sweet, yeah. Sweetheart, Jafik Jamba.
Let's see, flowers, bakbagoji.
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 And sweetie, Jumbi.
And of course, you said love earlier, Anogichka. And we were playing with this one. Becky and I were cuddle bear. We said nogozuji. But that was more descriptive, but we was playing around with some of the words that we had.
And we do that, when we're translating stuff. We have a good time translating.
Yeah. And I think even as far as love or care for someone, I see it a lot with teasing. We tease each other as Muscogee people.
Yeah, we do. We're very humorous people.
Yes.
And we don't take offense when we're, it's teasing around. Let's get married. We got Edie Buckagees. And I see a lot of people get married on Valentine's Day.
That's what we were talking about. We were saying, I wonder how many people will get married on Valentine's Day, because it seems like they do that every year.
Or get engaged.
I've never paid attention to that. I'm
not
have to
so
look.
much as Muskogee people, but you see that,
others.
Well, we're getting married on Valentine's Day. I was going to tell you a funny story. This guy told me, he said, of course, he grew up where me and Becky grew up. He married this girl from Tulsa. He said he come home and he said the lights were off. And she had candles and everything. And he said she was trying to be romantic. And he said, and I grew up back in Hannah. I was like, did they cut our electric off? So I was saying, that's just because you grew up with, if the lights are off, that means electric didn't get paid. But he said she said, well, I was trying to be romantic. And he said, well, I was thinking the electric was off. So that kind of made me think about that, because he said she had done that for him for Valentine's Day. And he wasn't used to that. So when she did that, it just kind of, he said, it scared me. He said, I thought, where am I going to go to get our electric turned back on? So, but that's what it made me think of when we were talking.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and even with me and her, we're not elders, but we're not young people either. But we don't have that romance that some girls, the married couples want. I guess it's kind of just understood with us too, and like him not knowing that she was being wanted
to be romantic. Well, he was like, when I was growing up, the electric was cut off.
We don't understand that.
Well, that was kind of my first thought. I was like, did it go out? Was it cut off?
Yeah.
I think in that situation, I might be a little upset because I can't see my food.
Yeah, when it comes to food, you got to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's things have changed in our society, and even the language. We're from the language department, and our job is to save it, trying to. But when we see other things, we're losing the language, we're losing our culture, we lose our traditions. But there's one thing I hope we don't lose, and that's that respect and love that our people had coming from the Trail of Tears and brought it to Oklahoma. I hope that we don't ever lose that, because if we do, we're really going to be lost.
I couldn't agree more. And with that, I think that's a great thought to leave listeners with. So I appreciate both y'all ladies for meeting with me today. I greatly enjoyed it. Mado.
Mado to you.
Oh my, that was really a powerful piece. Gosh.
Yeah, I didn't expect Becky to get all serious on me there at the end.
Right. Next time the lights are off in my house, though, I'm going to think, okay, Ramona and the Gozaji being romantic there.
That's so funny. Go ahead, Gary.
We have enjoyed today's cultural presentation and focus on language and culture here, and we hope to do much more of that, since we are talking about an oral tradition here. Okay, well, we've got a few minutes left. Why don't we get on to some community announcements and take care of a little bit of that business. First of all, the call is out. We have the Challenge Bowl coming up in February, and they still need folks to help assist as officials for the games and other tasks. So if you're interested in helping out these programs that help these kids so much, please get a hold of the folks there. They're looking for volunteers, and some of the training is mandatory because they're using little computer pads. What do they call those things?
iPads?
iPads, I believe, yes. And so you need to learn how to run them, like I would probably have to learn. So you want to get a hold of Melinda Deerenwater, volunteer coordinator at 918-549-2521.
Also coming up next week on February the 4th, Family Violence Prevention Program, along with Warriors Honor Women, are having a tailgate party. That is Thursday, February 4th at the Dome. For more information, call 918-732-7979.
On a serious subject here, there's a community meeting on teen pregnancy prevention coming up here in Muscogee County. The County Wellness Coalition and the Muscogee Nation Youth Services Program are hosting this community meeting to talk about the current status, provide an open forum, and develop a plan of action to deal with this serious situation facing us. Now, that community meeting is coming up on Monday, February the 8th, from 2:30 to 5 p.m. in the Muscogee Public Library basement conference area. That's Monday the 8th, 2:30 to 5 at the public library. And for more information, 918-549-2557.
Coming up next month, College of Muscogee Nation will be observing Black History Month. They will have a presentation by Ron Graham, president of the Muscogee Creek Indian Freedmen Band, and that's going to be about the Freedmen Saga and the Dawes Commission. That is February 18th from 2 to 3 at the College of Muscogee Nation Student Center, rooms 107 and 108.
Almost got away from you there.
I know it did.
So
little
hard to read.
dyslexia.
Okay, the Family Violence Prevention
I read that one, Gary.
We did the tailgate party?
Yeah, I did that one.
Oops. Give you a hard time when I can't even follow it myself. Here was a couple more here. If you're interested in the Yuchi language, classes are available for anyone interested in learning the language. Morning classes meet Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., and evening classes meet on Wednesdays beginning this month from 6 to 8 p.m. You want to contact the Yuchi Language Learning Center in Kellyville, 918-247-6123. 6132. Talk about being dyslexic.
I guess it's contagious.
Oh, my.
Now, coming up this weekend, January 29th and 30th, the Muscogee Creek Nation All Indian Livestock Show will be held at the Mvskoke County Fairgrounds. And for more information, contact Billy Holtum, 918-732-7628. They'll be showing sheep, goats, market hogs, heifers, and steers.
There are new ways to get a hold of information regarding the Muscogee Creek Nation. If you're interested in receiving mobile alerts to stay in the know wherever you go, the Community Resource and Development Office would like you to join the MCN Info Remind. You can receive text messages of the most recent MCN Info news and events. You can, to receive messages, you can text at MCN Info to 81010. And if you just want to talk with those folks, you might want to give them a call at the CR&D office here in Muscogee. You can call them at 918-732-7963.
Now, speaking of reminding people, Gary, on this, our last language segment, the article will be posted on the Muscogee Nation News Facebook page, and I'll have the words and the translations in that also.
Now, you've also been knocking yourself out on developing our archives, too.
Yes, I'm trying to get that back up and going. And so if you've missed any of our programs, you can look for them on YouTube. Just search for Mvskoke Radio. And so I hope to have this segment up sometime next week. We update weekly and are trying to go back and counter chronologically, I guess, if that makes sense, to upload, last year's things and keep going.
Right. Now, that will be an ongoing evolution, so don't get too wrapped up. Okay, well, that does it for us here on Mvskoke Radio. Mado Mabo Hedgetscut from Gary Fife.
Mado.
All right. See you next week. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Madam.